Hey everyone, Andrew here, and welcome to episode 30 of Beyond the Bike podcast. This week, the title, The Views Are Always Awesome. So I'm going to share a bit about that in my opening thoughts. Going to talk a bit about the training this week too, and some of the changes that I'm making to it and some of the exciting things that I'm doing on the bike. And then we get into it. We have made it. Chapter 20, The Downside of Creating Good Habits by James Clear in that Atomic Habits book that we're wrapping up this week. And as we do every week, we're going to finish with a little final thought and a little question for you guys to think about, to take with you this week. So, without any further ado, let's dive in. So, here we are, episode 30. And again, I'm just gonna kind of do a little bit of a, I'll start with this. If you're new, if you're just kind of listening to this podcast for the first time, you might be asking yourself, okay, what's he talking about? So, a little moment when we look at the views are always awesome. Episode 30 it's a special one because, again, if we go back to the beginning of this, if you've been a listener since the beginning, this podcast was only supposed to be a summer project. So again, I'm off for 8 weeks every summer. I'm in education. I'm a vice principal at a Catholic high school. And I always like to have little projects to keep me sharp. And I decided this year to do a little podcast. And, crazy, here we are, and we are at episode 30 already. And so I'm really proud of that. And I think it's important, James Clear talks about it in his book about, having checks and balances in place to reflect on your journey and to think about, and celebrate all of the awesome things that you're doing. So again, proud of this. Also, August 26th was episode, I can't remember. I think it's either 8 or 9 or something like that. And August 26th was the day we started the journey with Atomic Habits. It was the start date. And today it comes to an end. And it's awesome. I did it. 20 podcasts. And again, if you're thinking about it and you're going, okay, well, whatevs, you're doing a podcast. Well, this was only supposed to be like 8 episodes max. And, I think the awesome thing that, for all of you guys to reflect on is, when you do a podcast like this and, especially when you commit to 20 episodes, there's all kinds of feelings that you go through. And, it's like any project that we're doing in life. There's moments where you feel like it. There's moments where you don't feel like it. There's moments where you're kicking yourself. Why did I put it out there that I was going to do this? But on days like today, these are the days. These are the days we can stand on summits and you can look at the view and you can be so proud of yourself for, seeing it through. And again, really proud of it. And thank you again for all the listeners that have stuck through throughout the weeks. And hopefully, depending on at what pace you read the book, I did it over 20 weeks. But you know what? What an awesome learning journey. What a great book that we're all going to be able to carry with us for the rest of our lives. So that's awesome. If you haven't read Atomic Habits, let's say you're just popping in now for the first time, get the book. It's awesome. And I would say too, take your time to read it. And in one of the podcasts, one of the tricks that I'd put out was, break it down where you're reading a bit and then you're putting it into practice. And then you come back to the next chapter and you read a bit and you put it into practice, and it's incredible. So there you go. That's one of the views that is awesome. The second thing I wanted to share, or the second view of the week that I wanted to share with all you guys, what happened on Monday. So Monday was first day back for me after the Christmas break. And so, you know, again, going back to when this whole journey started, this Peloton journey started a year ago. It was January 1st where I decided, okay, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I've committed to, doing this every morning, spinning before work. So I get up at 5 a.m. I'm on the bike at 6 a.m. And I had this moment. It was weird. Like I was on the bike on Monday morning and I'm doing the spin and I haven't even realized it. And then it's, like I think it was like 10 minutes into the ride and I just had this moment like when, and I just kind of was, I just stopped and I went, holy smokes, I have been totally committed to this for a year. It was a year ago today where I did this for the first time, where I got on the bike, my Schwinn bike, my good old Schwinn bike, and I rode it before work. And wow, it was just, again, it was an awesome moment. And, it was a moment where, you could kind of, again, be at the summit a year after and look down and go, wow, like I did it. This is awesome. And I'm super pumped about doing it again this year. And all that to say, and I'm going to talk a bit about it in the Atomic Habits book, is, to achieve these types of things, you have to kind of be able to you have to have an idea or a goal or something that you want to, achieve. And then you have to be willing to kind of do it over a long period of time. And you have to be able to kind of ride the highs and the lows and, the times where, like I said before, where you want to do it, where you don't want to do it, the frustrations, the injuries, the fatigue, all the questions we ask ourselves. And if you're able to push through all of that and show up and give it your best, every day, it's incredible what we're able to accomplish. So, you know what? I wanted to share with all of you, or share that idea with all of you guys, so that depending on where you're at on the mountain, that you just keep climbing and just keep giving her. And, it's incredible what we're able to accomplish. So all that to say, I wish that all for you guys. So one of my new goals, the new things that are tweaks to my cycling that I wanted to share too, is I'm attempting, I want to be able to climb for 30 minutes sustained. So that's kind of a little thing that I'm working at. And so again, following the learning that we did in Atomic Habits and other things that I've done in my career as a coach, is you got to break it down. And so this Sunday marked the first spin where I kind of started chipping away at it. And I'm actually starting to design my rides. And so I designed a ride where what I'm doing is I'm going to start with so it's 30 minutes. So I'm breaking it down right now, and I've just started with 10 minutes. So I designed a ride, and I just use like the Just Ride feature on Peloton. And I do, again, a really good warm-up, some spin-ups, as we do in the power zone. And then I do a sustained 10-minute climb at an 85 resistance. And so after that, then I drop her down for a little recovery. And then I went into a little power zone spin, 2 zone 3s, 2 zone 2s at a high cadence to flush the muscles. And so it was awesome. It was my first go at it. And one of the things I'm trying to do too is not just set the resistance at 85, do it for 10 minutes and be chugging along at a cadence of like 20, but I want to try to keep it so that my cadence stays above 50. And so every week, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 minutes to that. So next Sunday, I'm going to add a little 2 minutes and I'm going to go for 12 minutes. So it'll be a 12-minute climb. And then every week, I'm going to add a bit to it until I get to 30. And so that's a little fun thing that I'm doing. Again, just kind of, getting in that uncomfortable zone and trying new things on the bike to keep it fun. So I'll report back on that for sure. And this week, if you're following me on Instagram and you watch some of my stories, you'll notice that I am doing a full week of designed rides. So I have this really cool app where I can program the ride. And so I'm super pumped about it. I really enjoy the Power Zone stuff. So I'm doing I love the Power Zone stuff, and I like all their rides, but I also like other components of other rides. So what I'm doing now is I'm designing rides where I mix in Power Zone and I mix in other components. So like for example, on Monday, it's going to be a 30-minute just ride, and the Power Zone, I'm going to go Power Zone 2 and then Power Zone 4, and then I'm going to do a hill sequence, and then I'm going to finish with a 2-4 Power Zone, and there you go, 30 minutes. And then again, check out my stories if you want. You'll see it's pretty cool, but I'm really pumped about this because, you know, I'm a coach at heart. I love the coaching part. I love designing stuff like this, and you know, it's just fun to kind of see this week. And again, really pumped about you know, kind of this type of training. What's fun too is I find the anticipation, like knowing what's coming, really helps also with performance. So that's something I found with the Peloton rides, especially in some of those hard Power Zone rides. You don't know what's coming. And sometimes, like if you're looking at a ride of 60 minutes, sometimes they're 90 minutes, sometimes they're 45 minutes. If you don't know what's coming, sometimes it's hard to kind of just do that mental planning, that mental prep. And so again, this is part of me having fun with that and designing it and trying to like optimize my performance through kind of designing my own ride. So there you go. Enough talk about my plan for this week. Again, reach out if you have any questions. If you want, you know, the app or kind of how I'm doing it. I might do a little video on YouTube to show you guys how I do the rides, and maybe you'll want to do them too. So there you go. That's this week, and let's dive into now chapter 20, the downside of creating good habits. So got a few little clips here. And so we'll do like we do every week. We'll listen to a clip, and then I'll provide some ideas around it. All right, clip number 1. Here we go.
The side of habits is that we can do things without thinking. The downside of habits is that you get used to doing things a certain way and stop paying attention to little errors. You assume you're getting better because you're gaining experience. In reality, you are merely reinforcing your current habits, not improving them. In fact, some research has shown that once a skill has been mastered, there is usually a slight decline in performance. Usually, this minor dip in performance is no cause for worry.
All right, there you go. So that's the first kind of thing that I wanted to share in our final chapter, and things for us to think about as now we kind of, you know, take all this learning that we did and we move forward. So a big idea is the upside of habits is that we can do things without thinking. Okay. So that's where we've done it enough where it becomes automated. The downside is that we stop paying attention to some of the little errors that we can make. And one of the things that I've always said when I was coaching is, and you've probably heard this one before, practice makes perfect. So you got to be careful what you practice. And you know, when you think about it, you know, Peloton offers such a variety of rides, and, you know, for some of us, we can be riding lots on the bike. And then you start to think, okay, you know what? I'm riding so much. I'm doing all kinds of different rides, but I'm not necessarily improving. And again, sometimes that can just have a lot to do with how you're training and what you're doing and how you're doing it. So that's something for you to think about. I continuously reflect on it. But the one thing I do know is, you know, or the one thing that I constantly try to think about is, you know what, Andrew, pay attention to your technique. Pay attention to your technique on the bike. And also, you got to go into murky waters. Okay, you got to get out there. So, you know, when you're riding the bike, if it always kind of feels the same way, where yes, we're sweating a lot, and you know, it's awesome kind of thing, but you're not necessarily starting to see the improvements, you got to get into those murky waters, the difficult parts of training. That's why I'm putting in another plug for Power Zone, because again, it took me a long time to buy in. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't sold at first, and a lot of it had to do with I just didn't know what it was. The FTP test. I was like, people talk about it and you're like all freaked out. Oh, the FTP test, I'm going to die kind of thing, and, then the month, that FTP, or not the FTP, sorry, but, when you're in that power zone, it's really just like training focused. So then I was thinking, will it be as fun as just those awesome Cody rides or the other rides on Peloton? And I would say that if you're listening to the podcast and you're hesitating, do yourself a favor, and in the next week or so, just take a step into the murky water and just do the FTP test. Get that started. Get that little screen showing, your power zones showing on your screen. And once that's showing, then dabble with some nice, easy, light power zone rides to start. Some of the endurance rides are really good. And I'm telling you, once you get going, there's no turning back. It's really, I think, where it's at. And I ended up in murky waters again this week, where I had in a morning ride. It was Friday morning, 45-minute power zone. I couldn't believe it when I heard Matt say it. He goes, okay, so today we're going 2 8-minute zone 4s, and we're going to do 1 10-minute zone 3. And I'm like, it's 6 a.m. in the morning. What are you talking about? 2 8-minute zone 4 sequences. And so again, I was in deep, murky waters, but it was hard. There were a lot of moments on the ride where I was like, okay, you know what? The little hamstring was tweaking a bit. It wasn't tweaking, but it wasn't 100%. I was like, maybe I should just back off this. But I focused on the technique, kept persevering through, and I felt awesome at the end of it. And it was funny because Ariel put out a little challenge, and I was, right in the ride in the beginning, and, things started to spike a bit. My data was off, and I knew she had won. She had challenged me to a graph war on Power Zone, and Ariel, you won this week or last week for sure. So all that to say, again, coming back to it, make sure you're reflecting on what you're doing, be mindful of what you're doing, and try to start, and my challenge is out there. Get into the Power Zone stuff. It's awesome. Okay, I'm rambling along. Clip number 2.
On dominant hand. Surgeons need to repeat the first incision so many times that they could do it with their eyes closed, so they can focus on the hundreds of other variables that arise during surgery. But after one habit has been mastered, you have to return to the effortful part of the work and begin building the next habit. Mastery is the process of narrowing your focus to a tiny element of success, repeating it until you have internalized the skill, and then using this new habit as the foundation to advance to the next frontier of your development. Old tasks become easier the second time around, but it doesn't get any easier overall, because now you're pouring your energy into the next challenge. Each habit unlocks the next level of performance. It is an endless cycle.
Awesome. So that clip there, really short, kind of what I want to share there is just, again, be aware that, when you start to hit those plateaus, where things start to feel like, okay, like I said before, I'm just not improving, then what you have to say to yourself is, it's then time to start the new push, the new climb. So you kind of have to see it as base camps, and as we go up, the mountain, it's going to be harder and harder to achieve gains. And that's another thing that we have to think about is keep in mind, as you improve, it's going to be harder and harder to achieve new plateaus. So in order to do that, you have to be able to break it down into small pieces and really, again, as I've said in other podcasts, refine those pieces and work at making them better so that when you bring it all together, you're stronger on the bike. So again, James Clear talks about habits plus deliberate practice equals mastery. So, again, once the habits are in place, you really have to become deliberate about what you're doing. Okay, all right, let's go on to our third quote.
Reflection and review ensures that you spend your time on the right things and make course corrections whenever necessary, like Pat Riley adjusting the effort of his players on a nightly basis. You don't want to keep practicing a habit if it becomes ineffective. Personally, I employ two modes of reflection and review. Each December, I perform an annual review, in which I reflect on the previous year. I tally my habits for the year by counting up how many articles I published, how many workouts I put in, how many new places I visited, and more. You can see my previous annual reviews.
All right, so again, reflection and review is a process that allows you to remain conscious of your performance over time. So ask yourself that question. Do I have a plan in place in my training where I am, reflecting during the week? Some people like to do it every day. They're journaling every day, I would say at a minimum, and that's kind of what this podcast is for me as I prepare it and as I think about it, as I gather the resources for it. It's really me reflecting on the last, the week that just passed, the week that's moving ahead. And this year, what was really cool, because it kind of came up on a 1-year anniversary, I actually did all right, I'm actually going to stop here for a sec, and I need to think about what are the things that I did really well in 2019, and what are the things that I need to do better in 2020. One of the things, and you know what, I'm going to share some of the things that I need to do better. Things that I didn't do in 2019 that caused me, I think, to plateau. So first off, believe it or not, less rides. Yes, your best day, be on the bike, set it. You got to do less rides. So in 2019, a lot of the time I was riding hard in the morning, and I was sometimes getting caught in leaderboard chases at night too. That's a thing of the past. I don't do that anymore. So first thing that I'm doing, less rides. 2020, it's the year of recovery. It's the year of focusing on, yes, it's one thing to get on the bike and do the bike thing. It's one thing to pick up the weights and do some resistance training. But the true gains happen in the recovery. So what am I doing? I'm sleeping. I'm focused on sleep. I love sleep now. You're looking at a person who, I slept very little. I'll be honest with you. I was like a 6-hour a night sleep dude. You know what I mean? Now I aim for a minimum of 7, 7.5. And then on the weekends, I like to have nice long sleeps. And it's incredible. Like if you go to bed, again, you do a little bit of foam rolling before bed. And if you get a good night's sleep, it's incredible. The next morning, you wake up and the pains are gone, or they're way better. And so sleep, another thing in 2020 that I didn't do as well in 2019. The strength training. So I'm in the process of going through that on Peloton, and I'm having fun with it because, again, with strength training, I used to go, cuckoo bananas with it, way too intense, and I'd be super sore. I find those 30-minute workouts are perfect. And then finally, if you don't have one, I got one the other day. It's those little massage drills. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I cannot say enough about it. So again, I'll do a little bit of it along the muscles before the rides, and I also do it after the rides. And I'm seeing huge gains in how my legs are feeling. So again, sharing that because that's all part of reflection and review is a process that allows you to remain conscious of your performance over time. Imagine if I wasn't doing this. Imagine if we're not doing this, where we're not consistently thinking about what we're doing. Is what I'm doing making me better? Is what I'm doing not helping me improve? Well, we gotta stop doing those things. So super excited to see where this takes me over the next year. Okay, all right, let's listen to the last quote here.
Everything is impermanent. Life is constantly changing. Hook us into our previous patterns of thinking and acting, even when the world is shifting around us. Everything is impermanent. Life is constantly changing. So you need to periodically check in to see if your old habits and beliefs are still serving you. A lack of self-awareness is poison. Reflection and review is the antidote. Chapter summary.
All right, so I don't know what happened there, but I think one of them wasn't loaded or something. So I'm just going to go with it. There was a last idea that I think was really, really important. And James Clear talks about, he says, the tighter we cling to an identity, the harder it becomes to grow beyond it. And so that's another thing I find. Again, like, sometimes we can associate our identity too much to one thing. And, this year, reflect on investing in developing multiple facets of yourself. We are able to do so many different things. Peloton is one of them. Being part of this awesome community is one of them. But there is so much else out there in our life that we can also continuously work at becoming the best that we can be. And you know what? What's key, I think, too, is being malleable and a person who can adjust the sails when the wind blows hard. You know what I mean? You got to be able to adjust courses. Things come at us sometimes that we can't control. But if you're able to just adjust the sails and keep moving forward, keep that boat moving forward, you know what? Life is good. All right, there you go. Wow. So proud, so happy. I hope you guys enjoyed this book. I know I did. And excited to say I have a book picked out and ready for the podcast next week. And I'm going to share it next week. So with that being said, we're 27 minutes in. Let's finish, as we always do, with a really fun quote that can kind of frame our mindsets for this week. When the answers don't come. So here we go. Again, from the book, A Year of Positive Thinking, Daily Inspiration, Wisdom, and Courage. When the answers don't come. So regardless of how hard you try, there will be times when the answers you seek aren't ready to be discovered. When that happens, and it will, you are being called to allow your heart, intuition, and brain to catch up to one another. You must trust that the right answers will present themselves when you need them to. Have faith. Know that you will figure out the next step. But first, you must patiently sit with the questions. So, thought that was awesome. And let's finish up. Again, feel free to visit beyondthebike.weebly.com. So that's where I have the podcast. If you want to watch it, I make it available on YouTube. And also I got a little spin video I'll be doing, maybe a couple a month. So check that out. And I'm going to leave you guys with this question. It's an important one. And it speaks to the title of the podcast, The Views Are Always Awesome. And the question I have for you is, which mountain top are you chasing right now, where the summit is hidden by the clouds? And I find that's key. That's key. So again, I'm going to repeat that. Which mountaintop are you chasing, where the summit is hidden by the clouds? Again, often along our journey to the top, it's not always in a straight line. And, we don't always know where things are going to go. But if we have the courage and, the persistence, and the discipline to keep moving forward one day at a time, getting better one day at a time, we always end up getting to the summits. So, with that being said, God bless all of you. Let's find kindness and empathy in our hearts for those who need it this week. And you know what you need to do? Go get it. All right, take care, everyone. Have a great week.